Come on and slam, and welcome to the jam. Hi, everybody. I'm Objectively Dan, and welcome to Truth Wanted, the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we talk about what people believe and why it is Friday, July 16th, which means Space Jam 2 is coming out today. I'm wearing the Toon Squad jersey, repping the team, where Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny helped defend the Earth back in 1996. I don't know why we don't talk about that more, but it's a great film. I'm excited for the sequel. And today, as usual, I have a special guest. Joining me today is Kelley, Laughlin. Kelley, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Going good. I know you, Kelley, because you are a volunteer of the Atheist Community Discord, and you also do your own show as well. You are just been around for a while, but you are on today for a very particular reason, Kelley, and that is because we're going to talk about some crystal woo stuff today. So I am very excited about that. So, Kelley, what do you know about crystal woo?
I've been in the rock and mineral business for about 40 years, so I've kind of watched the whole woo thing take off from nearly the beginning back in the late 70s. So I encounter it on at least a weekly basis. I encounter somebody who really believes it, and I have a lot of conversations about it.
Yeah, so like this has always been kind of a fringe thing for me on my perspective. You know, I've heard people talk about it. I will say, being in Austin, I've seen way more people talk about it and like wear jewelry for like crystal healing purposes and stuff. But I didn't realize how big of an industry it really is. Like they do have these like conferences and stuff on crystals and stuff. And it's a giant trade, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's the crystal business alone, I just recently read, was $9.5 billion a year, which
$9.5 billion a year.
Yeah, not quite as much as the herbal market, but a pretty good chunk of money anyway.
Yeah, that's a lot. So you yourself, you own a business which you sell. You're a purveyor of rocks, minerals, and crystals. And we were just talking too. You actually have some clients that come in specifically because they want to buy stuff for kind of woo purposes. So like, what are people buying your crystals for?
A lot of people will come in for that. We have a sign inside our front door that says our crystals are guaranteed not to heal anyone, and we will give you your money back if you bring us a note from a doctor telling us that the crystal healed you.
Oh man,
we haven't had to pay out any money back yet, but we have also had people see that sign and storm out.
Really?
There's a crystal therapist a couple of towns over that actually gave us a really bad review on Facebook because all of our crystals have bad energy because we don't believe in it. So there are people who believe in it so much that they're willing to go that far to actually bad talk somebody who didn't believe it.
So like a crystal therapist, like who is that? What does that mean? Like what do they do with these crystals?
Do you know what Reiki is? It's
Yes.
a lot like Reiki. They're going to manipulate your energy to make you feel better, or to cure your disease, or to cure your psychological problem that you might be having.
Yeah.
If it actually is working, it's nothing but a placebo effect. But that's the idea behind it.
Yeah, Reiki is kind of weird because with Reiki, they're like, they think that they're actually manipulating the energy like with their body and doing stuff like that. And I guess I've heard similar terminologies with kind of the crystal world. I've read something about how the structures of these crystals can somehow contain some kind of energy. Like I saw a thing on TikTok, I think, about somebody charging their amethyst under the moonlight or something, whatever charging means. Like, I don't even know if they know what that means, but like, it's crazy that this is such a widespread thing. And I always thought it was a new age thing, but I've recently seen more people who identify as Christians and who identify under other like kind of mainstream labels also like take crystals as like a serious thing. So that's kind of interesting to see too.
Be like celebrities like Gwyneth Paltrow kind of made it mainstream. So
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
So
that's true.
so that's happening, and a lot of people are realizing that, you know, maybe I can believe in this and still be a Christian, because God created this stone, so that he must have created it for me to use, right?
Right. Yeah,
So
I guess that's true.
you can have that crossover that way.
I guess so. Like, but I don't think there's no Bible story that I'm aware of that uses rocks as a healing tool, right? Like, I don't think that's a thing. I don't think Jesus was
No,
throwing rocks at people. But
no, but there is a historical link to the Bible in the breastplate of Aaron.
in the breastplate of Aaron, tell me more about that. What do you mean?
He had 12. Aaron, the Moses' brother, had 12. Wore a breastplate as it was a sign of his priest, of his being a priest, the high priest,
Yeah.
and he had
Okay.
12 stones that were embedded in the breastplate, one for each sign of the zodiac, one for each month of the year.
Was that
That's
what?
actually
Isn't that
that's
for
where
like
our,
the 12 tribes of Judah though? Isn't that what that's about?
you know what, I think you're right, but that's where we're getting. That's where we get our. You know, what the reason I made that connection was that's the where we got the original birthstones from, were the 12 stones that were in the breastplate of Aaron.
What? I did not know that. I'd have to look that up. I haven't heard that
That's
before.
that's where the original list came from, and now it's changed over the years. The list we use today was actually mostly made in the early part of the 20th century by Tiffany's.
Yeah, so I guess there is that connection too, because like there is the assignment of the zodiac charts too with particular stones. And I don't really know what the meaning is behind there. I can't even remember what mine is supposed to be. Whatever January stone is, I guess is mine. I think it's
Garnet.
garnet. Garnet, right? Ah. See, why do I know that? That's such a useless fact that doesn't actually mean anything to me in like my daily life. But like, is it what's the association there? Do you know why people like, what's the special meaning behind that?
Behind it, nothing really. I mean, there really
Nothing. I
isn't.
mean,
It's just that what the industry has done today is they've assigned these stones to it, so to actually just to make money. All
yeah.
right, you got somebody who has a birthday in January, you should buy him a piece of garnet jewelry.
It's that simple, I guess. I mean,
It's
yeah.
basically it.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So like, have you had any experiences with, you've told me a bit about like the conversations you've had with people. Like, have they come to you and said like, oh no, like I've had healing experiences from crystals? Like, what are the kind of conversations you've had with people in your business?
I just had a really good conversation with two women today, and I was saying, they asked me why I didn't believe it, and I told them that I had never seen any proof that it works, and they were said, well, I have, and I was like, well, what is it? It works for me. And
Okay.
I tried to explain to her that that wasn't proof. You know, anecdotal evidence isn't proof. It's evidence, but it's not proof. And she was having a really hard time grasping that. She
Hmm.
eventually understood that it wasn't proof for me, and she wouldn't accept the story from me as proof of something either. You know, I had to
Hmm.
turn it around on her so that she understood what I was saying. But
Yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go
Well,
ahead.
so I'm just wondering because, obviously this past year we've seen a huge rise in the anti-vax phenomenon, right? Like it's already was a thing, but like it's become more of a thing now than probably it's ever has been in recent history. I know actually, when vaccines first came out, there was a lot of people that were really skeptical about it too, but we're seeing like a new rise in that movement. I'm wondering how many people are like using crystals as a substitute for like vaccines, because I've seen some of that go around too, where people are kind of just using crystals for pretty much every single possible ailment under the sun, for depression, for like viral infections, like anything you can think of. It seems like there's a crystal for you, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it boggles my mind. I have no idea how many people are using the crystal as a vaccine. The
Mm.
idea of it horrifies me, but I'm sure there's somebody out there doing it. I once saw a woman post online asking what crystal was best to give her daughter who had diabetes.
Oh, whoa.
So, um, yeah, things like that horrify me. That's why I speak out against it, because I'm afraid that that little girl that had diabetes is going to come to some kind of harm because her mother decided to give her a piece of rose quartz or obsidian instead of some insulin.
Yeah, so I'm curious, as somebody who kind of works in that trade, I imagine there are people who sell these rocks who have no particular belief in any of their effectiveness, but are willing to sell them to people who do believe in this BS. Like, do you see that a lot in your work?
Yes.
So
I do.
So what do you think about that? Because I don't know. I understand the idea, like, oh yeah, like people who if there's a market for it, you can do it and people will take it. But at the same time, if it's like medical reasons that they're taking these things, I feel like that crosses the line a little bit, right?
I do too. And yeah, I do too. I think of people that do that as charlatans and snake oil salesmen, just to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
They know that they're selling something that doesn't do it, and they will make excuses like, well, I didn't tell them that that's what they would do. I would just say some people think it will do this. Well, that's just the same thing. That's just bullshit to get out of it by saying something like that to me. You're selling it under the pretense as a cure, no matter whether you're saying somebody else said it or you said it. That's still the reason why you're selling it.
Yeah, like when you go to a pharmacist in the United States, at least, like you have to talk to somebody there who's going to explain to you exactly what this drug does to you and how often you need to take it and what kind of complications and risks are associated with taking that kind of medication before you can ever get prescribed something like that. But if you have diabetes and you think that a rock is going to help you, you can just go up to somebody and they'll just sell it to you, no questions asked.
And confirm that, yeah, this is going to work too, and charge you twice what it's worth because they're selling the cure and not the stone.
Yeah, see, that's what bothers me, because like the more that I've looked into this now, like I said, this used to just be kind of more of a fringe thing. I didn't think there were so many people that were really into it, but a $9.5 billion industry, and obviously not all of that is going towards that kind of specific subfield, right? A lot of it's for just the regular trade, but like I can't help but think that there's a portion of that that's going to people, for this kind of thing, right? Like, I don't know. It's
yeah, I would say probably at least half of it. So
really, half? You think it's half?
Oh yeah, it may be even more. The woo market has kind of been taking over the whole market slowly but surely since the 1980s, and just steadily chipping away at the whole market. It's become really hard to have an old-fashioned rock shop, and very rare to find one.
Yeah,
they're almost all crystal healing stores that sell incense and tarot cards too. So
that's interesting. Gosh, I wonder, how do you fix something like that? Do you think it has to be like a regulation that's standardized nationally for that kind of thing, or what do you think?
I think the FTC needs to crack down on it. Of course, they don't have the money and the people to do that. I think the AMA should be cracking down on it. Of course, they don't have the money or the people to do it. But these are the people that should be doing it, and we don't finance them or get them enough resources to perform that job. So So who do we get to do it? I don't know. I honestly don't.
Is there a crystal lobby in the U.S.?
No, not really. No, not really. You would think.
Because like herbal supplements and that kind of stuff, like basically the other stuff that Gwyneth Paltrow sells on her store. Like I know there's like lobbies and stuff for that. Like I know that there's money for that kind of thing, but you don't know if there's a lobby for that
not that I know of. Maybe the closest I would think would maybe be a mining lobby to keep where they're actually digging the stuff out. But most of the stuff that's done like that in the U.S. is all small time. People like me, I've gone out and dug up crystals many times. So you're talking about a smaller industry than something big where you're going to have the money to get together to make that lobby, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And plus, people would bring up the argument saying like, at what point do you regulate that kind of trade? I guess, I guess for me, it is the medical line that kind of draws it. Like I would feel extremely uncomfortable if I was a business person and I knew for a fact somebody was buying it for that purpose. Like in lieu of regular healthcare too, right? Like if they're going to that first before they're seeing a doctor, like that's a problem. And then like there's tons of people that are doing that, I'm sure. I mean, I think everybody at this point has seen all the Facebook screenshots of people in different groups and stuff talking about what they're doing, and
line of crystals all laid out down their chakra line, right?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Right. I mean, I always go back to TikTok, but man, TikTok, here's the thing about the internet, man. Like the internet is so great because I've learned about so many different people's perspectives and so many different people's ways of life, and how so much of it is bullshit. Like so much of it is just like stuff that just can't be verified, or people have an insane amount of confidence in that they should not have. And the crystal stuff, just the woo stuff in general, like there's a lot of that out there, and it's just a trendy thing now. I don't know.
Yeah, we need the internet to be peer reviewed.
Peer review. I don't know. Well, like, I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer on this. Like, I don't want to be like, the guy that's complaining about all the kids these days and what they're doing on the TikToks. But like, it like, at what point do we stop and say like, oh, this might be a problem? Actually, like, this might actually hurt people. I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know where to draw that line. What I don't really know is who we're gonna make or put in the position to draw that line. That's an even harder thing than where we're going to draw the line. Who do we put in that position, and can we trust them to keep that line safe? Right. Yeah. So it's a tough thing to think about or to even implement. So
yeah, I'm glad we don't live in a place where if I go to the hospital, like a doctor isn't going to prescribe me with like amethyst for any medical ailments or something.
Right.
No, at least we're not that far in. But I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. Anyway, Kelley, we got a couple of people who are on the line who want to talk with us today. Are you ready to talk to some folks?
I'm totally ready.
Cool. Let's do it. We got 4 callers on the line right now. Interesting. I want to talk to Kevin first, calling in from Arizona. Kevin, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Going good. Ready to party, ready to play some b-ball, ready to just get into the game. I don't know, still bringing the Space Jam vibes in here. Trying.
I'm interested to hear your perspective on something, because this is something that I don't pretend to have a lot of confidence in. But it's a study that I came across. It came out of Johns Hopkins Medical Center back in 2019. And so they did a study where they basically had people who had different psychedelic experiences talk about their experience. And I think they had just over 3,000 people. And so it was split between psilocybin, so magic mushrooms, LSD, ayahuasca, and DMT. And they found that 25% of people before their experience were atheists or self-described atheists, and after it was only 7%. So I'm curious to hear your perspective as to why it seems that people who have these powerful psychedelic experiences tend to become more theistic rather than less, or the same.
Well, I mean, like, if you've ever had an experience like that, which I plead the fifth on my own experiences, but like, it can be very convincing to the untrained person who doesn't know exactly what's happening. And I'll be honest, I'm not an expert in the field of biochemistry. You know, I couldn't explain to you the exact ins and outs of what's happening whenever drugs like that are being ingested into your system, but it can be a very powerful thing. Like, if you've never encountered anything like that before, and suddenly you have this object that put inside you makes you see these crazy, wonderful things. Yeah, like, I could see how you might be more convinced of something beyond what's right in front of you because you had a personal experience that was kind of crazy and it's hard to explain. It doesn't make sense in the regular everyday world sense. But, you know, for me, I just go back to this idea that, well, yeah, this thing happened because a specific chemical interaction that we can study and understand was going on in the body. We know that because, like, different doses of this thing can make you experience more or less of these effects. So, like, I don't think it's us like traveling into a different dimension or us talking to God. But, you know, I can look at that and say, like, yeah, that's why it is. But I'm privileged in the sense that I've been talking about atheism and stuff for a couple of years, talking about skepticism and stuff. So, like, I'm surrounded by people who are calling out each other's bullshit all the time. If you have a very significant personal experience and you don't have people in your immediate circles that are, you know, talking to you about that, then I can see how that could lead you to a different conclusion.
I could definitely see that as well. And that's something I've talked with a lot of people, and it's kind of funny how consistent the experience is for the people that I talk to. And it's amazing how so many things recur in people, even without necessarily being primed to understand that would happen. Three things that I noticed are really common amongst pretty much all experiences is a sense of timelessness. So this kind of idea that the perception of time that we have is perhaps biased by our own sensory perceptions. So we kind of have a way to see the world that, in a sense, is very limited in that we can only see it through our own eyes. And so, like, the second thing is ego dissolution. So a sense that our own personal experience is not the be all and end all, and that in some way it's almost like it kind of breaks down our external barriers. Like we become very attached to our name and where we were born and our beliefs and our preferences and all of these things, right? We see that as who we are. And in a sense, not just when I had a psychedelic experience, which was really powerful, but I had the same experience when I did the float tank therapy, essentially. Have you ever done that?
I haven't done the float tank therapy, but I have done other things. And I have experienced that sense of timelessness. I thought I talked to God one time. At least I had the illusion of talking to God. But even afterwards and in that moment, I'm kind of like, this isn't really what I think it is, but it just kind of felt like that. Yeah, like there is some kind of commonality to people's experiences, which is interesting. And if you like look at the psychonaut community and stuff, you know, the rational psychonauts that try to look at that. Yeah, you know, they talk a lot about this, about how reality itself might be just entirely based on our own perception of things, that perception itself is reality. And I always thought that was kind of an out there idea until like I kind of had some experiences myself, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Like I have a lot more empathy for people who understand the world through that kind of lens. But I still go back to this idea of, well, I can still make predictions when I'm not on those substances, like about what can happen to people. And that leads me to believe that there is something external, you know, outside of myself that's happening rather than me being the baseline. But, you know, like those experiences are very powerful. So I empathize with that.
So in a sense, do you think it's deceiving us in a consistent way? Like, do you think people who have these experiences and then switch from being an atheist to becoming a theist, do you think it's like a consistent delusion, like a mass delusion in a sense?
I don't know about mass delusion. Because like, oh, go ahead, Kelley.
I think it's an effect of the drug. I mean, speaking as somebody who's been to over 200 Dead concerts, and take that with however many grains of salt you wish. But I have seen a lot of people that have had these hallucinogenic experiences, and I have seen that same story over and over and over again. And when I hear that, I think to myself, this is what the drug does to you. Just like it might dilate your eyes, it makes you have this type of experience. Mm-hmm. So I think that the effect that you're getting is the drug, and people are interpreting it as a more godly experience instead of as the drug experience. And I think that's maybe why they turn more towards theism afterwards, because they think they had a divine episode instead of just a drug episode.
Yeah. And also, I don't know what's specific.
I look at it in a sense. Sorry, you want to go ahead?
Well, I was just going to say, too, I don't know about the specific John Hopkins study you're talking about, but I you know, atheists, too, if they're using the word atheist, that's interesting. But if we're just talking about secular people in general who don't have, like, a codified sense of, like, beliefs and maybe have, like, an in-depth philosophy of, like, their worldview or something, you know, like, I can see how that can be more, again, like, convincing. Whereas, again, like, I'm talking from a privileged perspective, someone who's a part of the atheist community of Austin, who talks to a bunch of skeptics and is just interested in this kind of stuff in general. You know, how I view my own experiences is going to be reflected in that upbringing and background too. And if you don't have that, then I could see people be more receptive to that. I used to believe that the Holy Spirit was inside of me and that I could see it inside of other people as well, because I grew up Christian and I grew up in that environment. So I can totally see how people who are, if you're taking drugs and you're hanging out with other people who take drugs, there's a culture there too about how to interpret their experiences, a lens there that you can pick up too. So yeah, it doesn't really surprise me.
That's why I like your show so much, because I'm a theist and I like to be challenged. Like, I called in the atheist experience a couple times, and I gained some pretty interesting insights because I think it's important that we spend time outside of our bubble.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like people that disagree with us. And
absolutely.
I think, and that's the reason why I'm calling in, because I don't want to have these experiences and throw logic and reason out the window. Because I feel like a lot of people like Epoch Show really annoy me because they get into way too much woo, and they just throw the word quantum in front of everything, and they're like quantum consciousness. I'm like, that means nothing. That's like the most ridiculous thing.
Right.
I mean, there are some things that occur. There are some things that like occurred to me while I was on it, and it's in a sense, I almost felt like the mushroom had its own consciousness, if that makes sense. Like, and I hear the same thing from people who take ayahuasca, is that it feels like there's a certain plant consciousness. And
yeah,
I think it's interesting to think that perhaps humans and plants co-evolved, because you look at like the plants kind of played a factor in our evolution. There's the stoned ape theory with Terence McKenna. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm a little bit familiar with that. I'm kind of reminded of oh gosh, what's his name? The guy who wears white all the time and has the glasses, and he does that show about drugs. I can't remember. I'm gonna kick myself later. I'm gonna kick myself later. But yeah, I don't know about the co-development of plants and humans from my understanding of anthropology. I'm not sure how much of that works, but I don't see how, I guess we create man-made substances all the time that affect us in different ways. And I don't necessarily have to think that there's a consciousness there, despite the subjective feelings that I get from it. I take Tylenol if I have a migraine, but I don't know if there's something beyond what the chemical compound is there. But because these other kinds of plants and drugs affect us in more powerful ways, we tend to have, I guess, a more empathetic view towards these drugs. And I think that's why people talk about in the language of these plants having like consciousness and stuff. But again, I'm empathetic to that only because I've had experiences myself where it's like, whoa, this is crazy. But at the end of the day, when I come down to it, I don't think of it anymore as just, a substance that's interacting with substances in me that's making fireworks go off in my brain, or whatever I'm experiencing at that moment. So
is there something you could see scientifically that would convince you that there was more to it? Do you think there's a way to study it systematically so that we could have some kind of reproducible result?
This is what this is what the Nova sciences, people know the Novetic sciences, people trying to talk about people's intersubjective experiences and how to measure that. And to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure what would convince me of that. That would be really hard because I have never experienced anybody else's experiences. And I think we're just now taking the steps to really divide up the human mind and figure out what it means to look at people's experiences in an objective manner. We, right now we're still working on the equivalent of when you go to the doctor, it's like on a scale of 1 to 10, how much in pain are you feeling right now? That's like what I feel like our technology is at right now in general. So I don't know what kinds of tests would need to be divided up to figure out a difference in that. But I'd be curious to see what other people would say on it for sure.
One argument I hear a lot from atheists is the argument from divine hiddenness, that because we don't perceive God, and it kind of comes with a bit, if I'm being honest, it comes like a false presupposition that God wants us to know that God exists. Like that's the number one priority of God. From my own experiences, my perception is that God is like an ocean of consciousness and we're all like drops of water or say a wave in the ocean, right? Like we're part of that. And it's kind of like, I feel like human subjective experience is God's way of experiencing novelty and experiencing adventure and experiencing things that a God is unable to experience, if that makes sense.
We're going into some different topics here.
And all powerful. But I feel like that came out of the psychedelic experiences that I felt like I'm a human being kind of experiencing that almost as a sense to be able to learn, right? And I feel like that's where it comes from. And I feel like the argument of divine hiddenness, that's a topic for another day. I don't want to get into that right now because we can
I do have to kind of wrap up this call right here, but I'll say this to this point. And then Kelley, I'm sorry because I feel like you have chimed in too much on this conversation. But So the argument divine hiddenness is more impactful when we're talking about the Christian God, right? Because the Christian God has at least in Jesus, like, has made it explicitly his mission to like know people and to like save people, right? So like there's more of an imperative there for the Christian God to be, you know, revealed in the world. But if we're talking about a deistic function of God, or even a more abstract pantheist version of God, you know, then the divine hiddenness argument doesn't have as much traction. So I think in context there might be a difference. Yeah, as far as like,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, as far as like the experience of God, like I don't know, you know, I as a secular person, right, I don't have any particular reason to, even on those kind of drug experiences that I've had, to have any meaningful, there's no meaningful way to me to describe those experiences with the language of God or the language of divineness, because I just don't know what that means at the end of the day. Is it extraordinary and outside of my usual experiences? Yes, but I don't know if that means that it's supernatural in any sense, or even like beyond you know, what's capable of this universe, because as far as I'm aware, I'm still in this universe and those things happen to be it's just that I just had just a weird perception at the time. So I don't know. I've yet to be convinced that I have to use the language of the divine to really fully encapsulate what's talking about there, because I think that it's such an intersubjective conversation there that people end up talking past each other at the end of the day. But I do have to go ahead and get some other callers here, Kevin. Thank you for your call in this, and I appreciate your perspective. Great talking to you. And yeah, glad you enjoying the show. I'm glad people are liking, you know, we got different content here at the Atheist Community of Austin. We're not all the same kinds of call-in shows, which is pretty cool. Kelley, do you have anything you want to say on that conversation?
No, I think you pretty much summed it all up. I wanted to break in there at one point, and then you said what I was going to say. So I think you got it all on that one.
Gotcha. Well, folks, I messed up here because, you know, I wasn't here last week, and I think this is the first time I've done this. I'm not sure. I forgot to introduce the patron of the week before we got to the callers, and I'm flabbergasted, to be honest with you. I don't know what happened to me, but I was so excited about the Space Jam bit. I think it just kind of got to my head. I think that's what it was. So we're going to announce the patron of the week right now. So this week's patron of the week is we got Pinkgloom. Thank you, Pinkgloom, for donating on the Truth Wanted Patreon. If you would like to support this program, you can do that. Go to patreon.com/truthwanted. Thank you to everybody who donates on there, but we're going to give a special thanks this week to Pinkgloom. And thanks everybody for going there and doing that. This show is run by the Atheist Community of Austin. I am a volunteer of that organization, and so are the most people that work on this show. So all the money that goes to that Patreon helps get me new equipment, helps us get Grubhub sometimes, and you know, goes towards a lot of stuff. So thank you guys who are donating there. Cool. Let's get to some more callers here. You ready to get some more folks, Kelley?
I'm ready to jam.
All right, let's do this. This one is talking about rocks, I think.
Look out.
Yep, crystals and rocks. We're talking to Sarah, who wants to call in from Arizona. Sarah, what's up?
Hey, Dan. Hey, Kelley.
Hi.
How's it going?
How are you?
Good. Just enjoying my time.
I'm nervous. Sorry,
Well,
that's okay. So am I.
It is all right. This is a safe space. I'm ready for you. What's up?
Sorry. I had two things I wanted to talk about. One of them was just to laugh at the silly things that I used to believe in. And when I saw that Kelley was on and you were talking about crystals and minerals, and I was like, oh my God, I have to get out my little notebook from all the ridiculous stuff I wrote down about my rocks. And I used to like put them in my pocket and think that I could like cure my anxiety with them. And it was ridiculous. So I thought you would have fun maybe with somebody who used to, I'm an atheist now, but I used to believe in a lot of woo.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Kelley.
I'm about to say you shouldn't feel like you are ridiculous for having believed that. I believe that stuff too, and it's easy to fall for it. You get a lot when you get so many people who are explaining this to you and how it works like this. But you can really get drawn into it. So don't ever feel like you are ridiculous for having once believed in that. That was just what I wanted to say to you.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't trying to speak badly about myself. It's funny to me now. It's comical to me now. And I kind of blame my upbringing in Christianity for making me susceptible to the woo. So I left Seventh-day Adventism when I was 19, but then I just spent like 20 years in all kinds of strange stuff because I didn't have a brain that was skeptical, and every new thing just seemed like the answer. So one of the things I really got into was rocks.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I also agree with you, Sarah, in that I think Christianity does make us more susceptible to woo. Maybe not like crystal stuff, because I feel like that's pretty fringe in general. Although, obviously, I mean, your experience is there, so it does happen. But like, I have met other Christians who believe in different kinds of like weird therapies and stuff that just make no sense. And also, like people talk about the evangelicals will be mad about yoga and stuff like that. But how many Christians practice yoga, which is like originally a spiritual practice in some sense or another, who just kind of take the secular elements out? And
I was warned about yoga.
Yeah, and different forms of prayer and meditation too. Like meditation has been on the rise in the country as people practicing it, even in a secular sense. But of course, there's a rise of people taking it in not a secular sense. So yeah, I definitely agree with the sentiment that Christianity can do that. So like, get into the specifics here. I want to know what about your beliefs
so
were
really
so
funny.
crazy.
I have all my notes from it because I used to keep like meticulous notes about what I bought and what it was, how it was going to help me.
I love it.
I still have this. This is in my free Oprah notebook too, which is kind of funny because I think most of the woo that I got into was Oprah inspired. Like we don't talk about that much in the community. No.
That's so frustrating. I hate that for you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry Oprah did that to you.
Oh, I thought you were saying, no, that's not the experience that's my experience, that so much of what I was introduced to was through her programming. So it's funny that I have all my tarot card readings and my notes on all my gemstones and everything in her notebook. So.
Oh man,
yeah.
no,
there was one called malachite.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Green stone,
malachite.
Copper oxide.
Yes. It was called malachite, and I bought a nice big piece of it. It was more expensive than just the little dollar stones, because now the sad thing is I really did need to do some trauma work, and I have finally accessed help for that. But at the time, I thought stones could help me with my trauma, which is really sad. So I would sleep with this to try to bring up stuff during the night so I could process things. And I really felt like it was giving me bad dreams, which is strange because I had bad dreams when I slept with the stone, which I know now, I'm sure it was my own system saying you can let stuff up. But I connected it to this stone, which is weird. And I was told that it's so dangerous and powerful that you couldn't keep it with your other stones. So it had its own little bag. I mean, I literally did this.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That's interesting because depending on what kind of Christian you are, you can interpret that in a couple of different ways. So one, you could say like that rock is actually doing things for you. And I would say that's a minority Christian view. Another Christian view could say that this is actually just completely, placebo effect going on, or you're just correlating this experience.
Yeah.
But Sarah, there's another Christian perspective that says that's demonic influences that are directly affecting you right now. And that's so funny that like you can just depending on your perspective, you can take that story in so many different ways.
Yeah. I had a carnelian worry stone, which I think actually I used to carry that one around because I would want to be more grounded. And of course, if you're rubbing your finger on a stone in your pocket when you're nervous and you're out and about, it is a calming thing. So I don't, but I used to carry that around. I had different
I always
for different things I wanted to work on.
I'm sorry, Sarah. I always see that with a lot of the stones that it makes you more grounded, and I always wondered what that really meant.
Mm.
You know,
I know.
because a lot
It's just something we
of
want as
the
human
stones are
beings.
good for grounding.
Yeah.
And
Like I say, I don't believe in this anymore.
Yeah, right. I understand that, but that was one of the things that I totally believed in it too, and that was one of the things that made me question it was the terminology when I heard well, this stone is good for grounding, and this stone is good for grounding, and this stone is good for grounding, and just what exactly is grounding? What is it doing to me that's making me better, right?
I'm guessing it doesn't mean cutting off electrical flow, right? They're not talking about that, right?
No.
Yeah, I guess it's just like giving you a sense of peace. Go ahead, Sarah.
For me, I have anxiety.
Mm.
Yes. For me, I have anxiety, and I've been struggling with it for years, which is also, from the religious trauma.
Right.
And the isolation. And I'm agoraphobic now, and I'm really trying to work on like getting out. And I think some of that has to do with my upbringing and things. And so I was really searching for a sense of like grounding, and I know I'm using that word, but just peace and calm. And
Yeah.
a stone in my pocket is not going to do that. But yeah. But those are things people are searching for, and that's the sad part. People are searching for solutions to very real emotional problems. And that's why I love that I've found this community. I've been an atheist for a couple of years. It just made so much sense. And now I'm not looking for the new best thing to like fix. Like you just keep going around, and you might not be joining churches, but you're joining in ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've really enjoyed the show, and just wanted to call in and laugh about the things I used to believe in. And also to say that after a year of reconnecting with my sister, I very gradually kind of changed my language. And then a week ago, just finally said, that I'm an atheist, and that I thought her as a Christian and me as a secular humanist really had a lot in common, and our goals and what we wanted in life. We have a lot in common, and that it's going to be awkward because I'm going to have to use more of my kind of new language. But that I really felt like we had gotten to a point in a year of reconnecting that we both trusted each other. And it went really well. And I know not everybody has a positive experience, but I just wanted to say that I'm just really happy that I got kind of that advice in the beginning to like take it slow, because I think that in just allowing the time that was right to kind of share that, because it had been building, she probably had kind of a clue at the time, I just think that it worked well for me.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, first of all, so happy that you have a community now that you can confide in and talk to about and share your struggles with. So congratulations to you for finding that. I'm super glad. Because there's so many people who have yet to find that yet, who don't realize that there's a community that they can go to and figure that out and deconstruct their own life experiences. And I also want to echo that. I think you point something out that's very, very important to people's intuitive sense of why they believe things. Okay, because we talk a lot on these shows about the arguments, right? What are the philosophical justifications for believing in God or not, or the resurrection, things like that. But the truth is, most people, in my opinion, most people do not believe in God because they are convinced philosophically and logically that X equals Y and Y equals Z. Therefore, God is real. People believe because they have intuitive personal experiences in their communities, and also in their upbringings, that they were taught to view the world in a certain way and interpret their experiences in a certain way, and thus culminating in their worldview. So we have to be sensitive to that just as much as we are sensitive to the arguments that we are so very careful in dissecting, because you can be right, but you're not always going to be convincing. And I think even like, I'm sure you get a sense of that when you talk with your sister, probably when you talk with other family too, that you have to be careful with the language you use, because that language is very, very important. And if you absolutely just trounce them in that moment and say everything is real, this is not real, sorry, everything's not real, this is all bullshit, right? Like, you know, they might not be as receptive to that. Whereas I'm actually interpreting what I previously thought was a God experience or a Christian experience as something else now, and I'm finding that this is working better for me. You know, people might be more receptive to that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm just really happy for you, Sarah. I'm so glad you called in to tell us about that.
It will be fun to be able to kind of be myself more, like really myself with her more, and see where that goes.
I hear you there. I hear you there. I am up here every week talking my ear off, and I still have people very close to me who I feel like I can't be completely open to, because it's hard. It's really, really hard. And there's a lot of pressure too, because we're both the minority where we're at, I'm sure, in our beliefs. So you don't always have that same sense.
Rejected.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The fear of being rejected is the big fear. Like when you get over that hurdle and you're like, oh, we're still talking every week, and we're, you know, it feels good.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I just wanted to share. And also I was going to mention I'm in Arizona, and there's a huge Tucson Gem Show here every
February.
year. And it's like, and I went we've only been here 5 years, and the first 2 years we were in Arizona, we went. It's such a huge industry, it overwhelms me. Like, you also just see how much stuff is just ripped out of the earth just for us to like carry it around in our pockets, thinking it. What do you think about that, Kelley?
It's a good point. You actually made a couple of good points that I wanted to touch on. One was talking about the mental aspects of the crystals, and we had talked about the woman with her daughter that had that needed insulin because she had diabetes, but we didn't really touch on people that really need a therapist, and there's probably more of those people that are using crystals than there are for physical ailments, and I think that's a huge injustice to people, that here are these people that really need help, and instead of getting that help, somebody's giving them a rock that's not going to help them, and it's really sad, and I'm sorry that happened to you. What I am glad of is that you feel like you're getting better, you're reconnecting with your sister. I was happy to hear that. I hope that goes further with you. I hope you can completely open up to her and be comfortable with who you are with her. As far as the mining goes, the over mining goes, you're right. And these are a lot of the same people who would talk about how we got to save Mother Earth and we have to protect the environment. Yeah. And at the same time, they're not being conscious of the damage that's being done by, and I don't want to say all of the mining, but by a lot of the mining. It's just not being done responsibly. And a lot of that is showing up in these marketplaces where these woo people are buying this stuff and they're not even giving a second thought to it. It's something that I always give a thought to because, well, I've been in the industry for 40 years now, and it's something that's prevalent in the industry. And if you've been in it this long, it's something that you couldn't not think about at one point or another. But I would like to see more responsible, small time mining. I think that is the key to the future of this industry. So hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll start seeing more of that. One thing that's happening in that favor is a lot of the big mining corporations don't allow collecting of specimens by their employees. So we are seeing most of the stuff that's hitting the market is done by small time people. It's just some guy and his family going out to a place a few miles away and hacking away at rocks for 3 months until they find something. And it's given those people in third world countries maybe not a great living, but it's given them a living. So we can look at that. I wish they were getting a bigger share of the market, but at least it's helping them in some bit. So I don't really have a problem with that type of mining, but I do have a problem with big corporate mining that's being irresponsible, that would rather pay off environmental fines than just stop the environmental damage from happening to begin with.
Well, Sarah, that's about all the time we've got now for this call. But thank you for calling in and talking to us. Yeah, appreciate your telling us your story, and I'm so glad stuff with your family is getting better too. I just wish you well. I'm really really happy for you. It's always good to hear stories from people like that who like found a new sense of community, because one thing for me was like Christianity was like my community. It was my space. I didn't understand what it meant to live as a non-believer or how to deconstruct my experience of coming out of that, because I just felt really, really alone until I figured out, hey, there's a whole bunch of people on the internet that feel the same way. So I say this every once in a while, but shout out to all you folks who were non-believers before the internet was a thing, because I don't know how you did it, to be honest with you. You guys are crazy.
We just kept quiet,
I guess. Yeah, man. It's wild to think about. But folks, I got something special to show you guys right now. We have a little commercial we put together for the ACA. And, you know, it's hard to get excited about commercials, but I'm actually really excited about this one because, I don't know, it's really great. I've watched this thing like 10 times now. So we're going to play this for you really quick. Check this out.
Next time I'm in Austin, all three of us are going to get together to have pretzels, dinosaurs, margaritas, and
we got some wide open call. What do you call that? Call windows, lines? Call lines. Yeah, lines. I think lines.
Is this your first episode of this?
Put on a conspiracy hat here or whatever.
You got a hat on.
I mean, yeah. You know.
Let me get the tinfoil.
When you say slime, do you mean that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, right. But it says seriously good mayonnaise. And
yeah, but like the Christian church claims it's good as well.
Yeah,
so.
It's real facts. You got it, Leo. I'm more than Lilith. You see, that's where you're wrong. I'm not Lilith. I am Satan incarnate, and I own you.
I love that thing so much.
Hey, that was awesome.
It's such a good little bit there. So yeah, folks, if you don't know this already, Truth Wanted is one of many of the cool shows here on the Atheist Experience Network. You should definitely check out some of our sister shows as well, but not right now because you're listening / watching Truth Wanted. So anyway, we're going to get to some more calls here and talk to you guys. We got a couple of different interesting topics. I kind of want to talk to Steven here. Steven calling in from Michigan. Steven, what's up?
Hey, Dan, just chilling, watching the show. How are you?
Doing good. I'm still excited about Space Jam. I don't know if I've emphasized that enough, but Space Jam, ready for it. Gonna watch it soon, I hope.
Yeah, I think you did mention that once or twice.
Once or twice, maybe. What's up, Steven?
Hey, so I was calling in to see what you guys thought about associating like smoking weed with coming up with really dumb ideas, like to use it almost synonymously. Like if you hear something you think is ridiculous and you're like, "Oh man, put the bong down." Like that's not true. You think that's appropriate or?
You know, I grew up obviously in a very conservative, Bible Belt part of Texas, right? So like weed, anybody that smoked weed was lazy, they weren't motivated. They were kind of slobs. Like that was kind of my image until I actually like went to college and like met other people that actually use this drug. And some of those people and people I know are some of the most productive members of society that I know. So obviously all those stereotypes are bullshit. And so I've had to deconstruct that. But like that's another idea too of people coming up with these crazy ideas and thinking like, oh, whoa, man, that's just a drug experience idea. Therefore, it's invalid. But I don't think it's invalid necessarily. I do think that weed in particular can be helpful in giving you a different perspective or a new synthesis of ideas that you may not have had before. And obviously, there's a lot of creative people that have cited the use of weed in their own art, endeavors. So yeah, like the idea that, it should be dismissed because it's something you thought of on, because you're smoking in itself is not great. Now, if it's something like, I don't know, squirrels on jetpacks or something like, yeah, that's kind of out there. And I don't know how it benefits society in any way, but I mean, that's just kind of part of the fun, right? What do you think, Kelley?
Right.
I was thinking that I've had a lot of bad ideas when I wasn't smoking weed. So I don't know that it's necessarily a byproduct of the weed smoking, because as Dan pointed out, a lot of creative people smoke weed and do a lot of great stuff on it. So I don't know that it's so much the weed as it is your perception of it. Boy, people say smoking weed makes you dumb, and I just came up with this stupid idea, so it must be the weed. So I think maybe you're making an association there that might not be a real association, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I know people, again, responsible for the management of entire companies, and are use this stuff. So this stereotype definitely has to go, in my opinion. It's crazy that it's not legal everywhere yet, but it's probably going to be more legalized in these next couple of years. We'll see.
It is legal where Steven lives in Michigan.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I wonder how long it'll take for Texas. I would say maybe 5 years.
I'm a Uber, Steven.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's beautiful up there.
Thanks.
So anyway, Steven, that was our answer. Do you have any response to that?
I think I'm in the same boat as you. I think it should be legal. I don't think it necessarily makes you dumb. I know a lot of successful people that use it, so I was just curious. Truth wanted, we got to get the truth out there.
Listen, you're absolutely right.
Be talking down on stoners.
You're absolutely right.
I will say this. I think the vibe, and in that commercial too, I look like I'm high. I have never smoked during a show, before a show, or anything like that. And my usage of materials is very light. I don't know what people think of me. I think I have, just because we talk about kind of the crazier ideas, like on this particular program, that I'm just like the stoner host. I think that's what some people think of me. I'm really not. I do not partake that often, but I mean, whatever people want to think of me, it's fine. I don't care. I have fun with this either way. But all right, well, that wraps up that call, I guess. Steven, thanks for calling in on that. That was a fun little side adventure.
I will admit to having smoked before a show, but never an ACA show. So.
Yeah, there you go. You got to keep things. I don't know. Like when on this show in particular, right? If you're talking to a bunch of different people, and I'm talking to you, and sometimes crew's talking to me, it's like, yeah, I don't know. That'd be hard to do if I was on anything else. But
I would be afraid to be high here today.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe some other people could.
I would be making a worse appearance than I'm already making. So
yeah, I'm more the paranoid type too when it comes to that. But anyway, that's we're getting too personal now. We should jump into some other calls here. Oh man, let's see. We got 2 other calls here. We definitely want to get to both of you. So let's talk to Carolyn first, calling in from Idaho. Carolyn, what's up?
Hello, I am asking for some advice.
Okay. Yeah, how can we help you?
I hope that wasn't the sound of a disconnect.
I think it was the sound of a disconnect, but I'm going to return to Q here and let the crew tell me otherwise for that one. Yep, looks like call-in studio dropped for that. So we are going to see what we can do here instead. Let's see. We're going to talk to Robert calling in from South Carolina. Let's see if we can get Robert on the line here. Robert, can you hear us?
Hello. Yep.
Hey, Robert, what's going on?
Hi, Robert.
Hey, Dan. Hey, Kelley. How y'all doing?
Doing good. Doing
just great.
Chilling like a villain, as the kids say. I don't think kids say that.
Space Jam either, buddy. I'm with you on the Space Jam.
Absolutely. I'm ready to slam and jam.
Hey, man.
Yeah,
Michael Jordan back in the day with the NBA and All-Star teams and all that. I mean, that was big. Mm-hmm. That was real big back then.
Yeah, when Michael Jordan passed the ball to Bugs Bunny and made that dunk, I'll never forget that. Anyway. That's That's the most of my basketball experience is Space Jam, I will admit. But let's get to the call here. What's going on, Robert?
It always amazed me they didn't talk about that more in history classes.
I know, right? Michael Jordan helped defend the world, and Bill Murray too, and we just treat them like normal people.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's crazy.
And
anyway,
we grew up with Bugs Bunny too on Saturdays. So I mean,
right.
it's a tie-in from a whole bunch of things that we loved back then. So.
We're gonna get sued by Warner Brothers. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Anyway, what's up, Robert?
Well, I want to talk about politics. It's a wonder listening. I've been a listener to the ACA for quite some time, a few months now, and kind of like Netflix, kind of binge watch.
Mm-hmm.
I love the shows. I like the arguments, and never really put two thoughts into politics or to religion too much until just a few months ago. I had a friend come down, and he really wanted me to look into it because he was very passionate about Christianity. So I did, and a few months later, he got the answer I don't think he was looking for.
Oh, yeah?
It just didn't take me long. Yeah, it just didn't take me long. I mean, I was agnostic for maybe 2 weeks, I guess you can, kind of say. But anyways, into politics, there's a lot of people out there that just won't talk religion or politics, especially strangers. And I've always been the kind that just open up and just talk to whoever wants to talk. But see, religion can be very divisive, and so can politics. And it's like a cardinal rule, really, that you don't talk about these two subjects, and especially with strangers.
Yeah.
But with politics, it's a little bit different. Of course, we know politics is real. We all watching TV every day. But we get the same results from politics as we do, I think, religion. There really doesn't come anything constructive. Nothing constructive comes from it. Like, we might go down there to vote, but there's really nothing, no change that ever comes from it, don't seem like. And so I got to thinking, well, what is representation? Well, representation is simply finding out what unites a particular constituency, right? I mean, it's finding ideas and then seeing if there's some type of constituency out there that will also like that idea, and see how many people other than you that will like that idea. And then, maybe candidates will adopt that idea and use it as part of their platform to run for office.
Sure.
But, that doesn't happen. It's an ideology of a party, and we just kind of run with that. And I think most people vote against the other party. Nobody really constructively votes for a good reason. Nobody votes for good ideas. It's so I thought what a good idea would be is start a small business, maybe on a county level, have that county, the people, introduce ideas, and then have the same people, that county, judge those ideas, right? So basically you're building momentum for ideas to solve problems. Then over a course of a month or two, or a year or two maybe, you can start to begin to see the people are creating a mandate or of sorts with the most popular ideas. Elected officials, candidates can see this. We can see this for ourselves, and for the first time, I think for the first time ever, the public is starting to put a mandate together that isn't an ideology, but rather, straightforward ideas on things that they want done.
Okay, so I'm going to cut this off here. Just a couple different things here. One, you're saying that like religion doesn't change, but politics do change. But like, I actually disagree with you on that because religion is inherently tied into politics always, even in a secular state. Religion still matters as far as our political decisions, and whether or not the actual events of a particular religion are true or not, it still affects the everyday living of people. For example, if you go to Iran right now and you try to walk your dog in public in certain places, they're not going to let you do that because of like Shia mandates that say like, according to Islam, the saliva of a dog is unclean. And therefore, they have this law in place that, you can't walk your dog in public. So like we in the United States are sometimes more privileged because we don't necessarily have to deal with the intersections of religion and the state like that. Although it does happen all the time, we're still like having problems with it. It's not on the level of some other places. And also like denominations, depending on the organizations, like they have lots of votes for like within their own organization. Like look at the big thing with the United Methodist Church. That's a huge deal. Them talking about the acceptance of gay marriage or not in their churches, and other issues that like the Southern Baptist conventions have faced recently. So like that's a whole other game there of religion and politics being put together.
But doesn't that surprise you though? There's no sharing of ideas and judging these ideas in certain constituencies, and then looking for candidates to adopt these ideas as part of our platform.
There is though. I don't know how you say there isn't. There's like political campaigns for this kind of stuff all the time. Maybe it's not in the way that you would want it to be, but like there's still definitely a campaigning of ideas for sure.
Yeah. If you break down what representation is, though, isn't it some type of consensus between a constituency? Isn't that? And then finding somebody to do exactly that consensus?
I agree with you that politics in this country is broken and that we don't always get the representation that we deserve or that what best reflects the people in this country.
I'm just saying the money in politics these days might have a huge effect on that, and where there's no way we could find any type of representation, because ultimately at the end of the day the money is going to be represented in in the parties. That's all.
I agree with you there.
And as long as it doesn't conflict with the interest of those, I'm sure it'll get passed. But if it conflicts at all with anybody who invests money into the parties, no idea is really going to catch any momentum. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Go ahead, Kelley. You want to say something?
I was about to say, I can see how you might think that problem is even worse too when you'll see votes along party lines. A local politician here is an ex-teacher, and he voted to cut funding for school funding here in Michigan by a lot. And I confronted him one day in our local grocery store and asked him, as a teacher, how could he do that? And he said that he couldn't change the one line in the budget, and he had to go along with his party. Well, I don't understand why he had to go along with his party. If you don't agree with something that's in the bill, don't vote for it, right? So I can totally understand what you're saying. We're not getting our representation because they're voting with the party instead, right?
Yeah.
You would think they would all be independent, and they would all, sure enough, the party got them elected. You would think they would all still be independent once they get to elected office, and they'll cross lines, they'll talk to each other, and they'll find some common ground and pass things and do it in a constructive manner. I mean, I know they used to do that back in the 60s, 70s, and even 80s. But, a lot of that doesn't go on these days, and it's just troublesome to see that. And, like I said, the comparison between politics and religion these days is something taboo. We're not allowed to talk about. We're not allowed to try to find that representation or even talk about it. And that's something I just want to expose. Mm-hmm. It's important, I think, the public finds representation. Yet I don't see anybody wanting to talk about it. Because representation? There's ideologies and parties out there. You vote, sure, but...
Look how many people, Robert, are against current presidency and presidencies prior because of the religious beliefs of their constituents. Like even it affected John F. Kennedy because he was a Catholic. People didn't like that, and that was the whole thing. So people will emphasize or downplay certain parts of their own religious beliefs to perform for their constituents in some way or another. Religion in the political sphere has almost always been a performance. I don't know how you could get around that, really, honestly. There's never going to be, at least in the next 5 or 10 years, an atheist constituent that's going to appeal just to me because I'm too small of a demographic. It's going to be the larger religious majority in this country, at least, because it's just how it is.
It doesn't matter if he's religious or if he's atheist, right? I mean, as long as he represents constituency, which he... Yeah. So
I get that.
The point is, I mean, there's no structured organization to build momentum for ideas.
I get you. I think there's a lot of political scientists.
He couldn't because
Robert, I think there's a lot of political scientists who are interested in this conversation and who talk about like new methods of voting, new methods of representation, and talk about fixing issues in this country like gerrymandering and things where we're not seeing that kind of representation. Yeah, like I do think people are interested in that for sure.
So, something that Robert and I had a conversation earlier. I was hoping it was you when you mentioned politics, but one of the things that we talked about today was campaign financing laws too. And I think that's where we run into a lot of our problems at, when politicians are so busy trying to make money to run for re-election instead of doing their job. We have a problem, and we're seeing a little too much of that on a federal level today. So, and I'm glad you called in, Robert. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm glad you called in about it too, Robert. I'm going to go ahead and let this call go right now. But the only thing I was going to add too is that the atheist community of Austin itself is a nonprofit. So, we have specific restrictions about our, representation in politics. We can't endorse specific candidates because we work as a nonprofit. And I would expect the same out of every nonprofit in this country and every church in this country as well. But like, obviously that doesn't happen. There's a lot of churches out there, and there's video evidence of people endorsing specific candidates and stuff. And I do think that's definitely a problem. Yeah, I do think people are interested in ideas. I just, people just have a lot of different opinions on how to do that. So maybe that's where the real debate is at. So we're going to try again. Let's get to talking to Karlyn again, calling from Idaho. We're going to see if we can get you on the show. Karlyn, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Cool. All right. So
Good.
was dropped earlier, but now we can talk to you. What's up, Karlyn?
I did call back in. Yes, I am having a matter in my own life, but I don't know where to ask for advice, and so I'm calling in. I am moving house in a couple of weeks from northern Idaho to western Montana, a town that I have wanted to move to since I was 8 years old, and it's finally happening. Paradoxically, this is an extremely religious town. I cannot go there without being approached by strangers on the street asking me to come to their church services with them. There is one theater in town that runs movies weekly. At least 75% of the time, these are Pure Flix movies. It's that kind of place. And I'm kind of bold and brassy, especially when people push me too far with their silly ideologies. And as I was saying to your call screener, I don't want the fire department to be a little slow in responding to them setting my house on fire with me in it if I'm not a carbon copy clone of their hand presser club.
Yeah, that's a tough situation.
So
That's a tough situation.
Just looking for some advice as you guys are engaging with strangers all the time who are married to their ideology. I'm going to be inadvertently in the same boat, and I'm sure I can handle myself better, and I'm looking for some tips.
Yeah. So I'll start off first, I guess, and then I'll let Kelley share his experience. But like I've been in that boat in the sense that I had to go back to my family and the world that I grew up in with this kind of change in myself and realize I don't belong in the same way anymore. And I had to reorganize some of my friendships. I had to reorganize how I spent my time during the week, instead of going to church, instead of doing church related activities, I'm figuring out what I'm doing instead with that. And that transition is difficult. And doing that, I've had to figure out when to keep my mouth shut sometimes and when I can assert myself and not let people stop all over me and make me feel like that I can't speak my mind. There's definitely a balance, and I think everybody's going to have a different perspective on what that balance should be. Now I'm honestly more confident than ever. I was saying earlier in the show that there's still times where it's hard, and it's still hard, but I'm definitely, now that I'm a bit older, I'm not under my parents' roof anymore, or as dependent on them and other family and things like that. I do feel like I can have a stronger place in the world and be able to speak my mind and say things when appropriate, right? but I guess it's really contextual. You know, like I think if somebody's approaching you and they want to talk to you about what you believe, you have a right to be honest with that, and you have a right to stand up for yourself. If they are coming to you, if they are approaching you with this and they want to talk to you, you have a right to be honest. You know, I like, as far as how honest you want to be, like, I guess you have to draw that line. You know, like, obviously we probably both share some negative opinions about what some of those people might think, and that can be tough to.
Entirely situational. But the last time I walked into a grocery store in this town, the man walking through the door behind me yells out to everyone within earshot, "May Yahweh bless you abundantly."
Yeah.
And all I can do is beat cheeks away from his direction. But when these are addressed to me, it's more frustrating, because the older I get, the more angry with these things I get.
Right.
And I don't really have that balance of when to not attack the person for being stupid, and to dial back and explain to them that the philosophy they're heavily engaged in and have devoted their life to is really dumb.
Well, here's the truth, Karlyn. The truth is, you are not going to convince them, probably. You probably are not. And you are definitely not going to do it in a single conversation. It just really doesn't happen. Some people misattribute my story when that, you know, people talk about when I talk with Anthony Maglabosco, that was the reason why I'm an atheist now. And it's not. And I've said this every time everybody's ever asked me about it. That was one stepping stone in a much larger process. If you're growing up in a system like that, for most people, it takes time to deconstruct. There's the occasional people who have that light bulb moment and they attribute a lot of it to that, but I guarantee there's still deconstruction that has to be involved if you grew up in that system. So you have to be patient with yourself as much as you're patient with these other people. You have to realize, like, look, if you want objective reasons to be patient, here's what it is. Scientifically speaking, they're not going to change their mind. Like, it's just a statistical unlikelihood. And so if you want to live in accordance to reason and live in, you know, try to make sense of your experiences, you just have to be able to have that sense of patience and knowing that there are things that I know that this person doesn't know, but I can at least shed some light here and there in a few places. Maybe you can point out one or two things that they're got incorrect, or maybe you can talk about something that is most important to you in that. But I would say, above all else, Karlyn, above all else, personal safety comes first in any of this. If you don't feel comfortable talking about it, sometimes it's best just to keep quiet for a bit. And that sucks to say. And I hate saying it, but I've known too many people who have been in really dangerous situations, and I worry more about their personal safety first than I do anything else. So consider that metric first. And if you do feel like you can, like, try to be as patient as you can. Give the patience that they won't, because that's the best you can do, honestly.
Leaving a town that is somewhat cosmopolitan, about 100,000 people live here. Fewer than 10,000 people live in the entire county. And we make a joke about them having to hurry from one church service to another.
Yeah.
The moment these people get out of church, they have to hurry before they're late to church. They don't really have anything else to occupy their time or their minds. And it's not a situation where I've ever felt in danger. Here, there's just more people to absorb that. But when you really, really shrink that pool, I don't believe there is a single atheist in the entire county. I would be pleased to be wrong, and I hope to be wrong. I think I'm going to be the only one.
That might be true, but maybe they're just being quiet like you. And maybe they just watch shows like this one or other ones, and that's where they get their sense of community, because they haven't found that person yet either. You know, like I'm when I first was like exploring and kind of talking to people about this in secret, I was surprised at how many people felt the same way I did. You know, maybe they weren't all the way there using the atheist label, but there's definitely a lot more skeptics out there than what people can think. And usually it's the quiet ones. You know, they may not be the ones blessing you with Yahweh's blessing, but I don't know, maybe a public library, if they have one there, or some other kinds of meetup groups. You'd have to look it up. I don't know where you're at, but yeah, I would at least try before giving up all hope, right?
that is another thing that I'm pondering just in the last couple of days is starting even if it's kind of under the pale of come watch non-Pure Flix movies at the address with us.
Yeah. Invite them to watch Space Jam. It'd be wholesome for the whole family.
There you go.
I've never seen the.
I would.
Well, that's.
I would take Dan's.
Go ahead.
I would say I would take Dan's advice and go check out meetup.com. You may already have a group that's in your area that's meeting that you don't know about. So there may be a community there for you already.
Or you could be the first one.
Is in Palmer.
Or
I may have to be the first one.
Yeah. And you get to be the change.
It could be. And then you might be surprised at how many people are waiting for you to be that first one. I've had that experience starting.
And a lot less intimidating.
I've had that experience starting clubs myself where we didn't know how we were going to do it, where we were going to find the people. And they showed up. They just should. The people that you need to show up will show up if what you're doing is right. And I think maybe if you do have to be that first person, I think you'll find a community. I think there'll be people there that will meet you and say, I was just waiting for you to come along to start this up so we could do this.
Yep. And Karlyn, if you're thinking that's really intimidating of a project, get in contact with like some of the atheist community of Austin folks on Discord or just really anybody in the live chat even. I guarantee you there are people who are out there who are willing to help you get something started. They can have the resources for that. Absolutely. You're definitely not alone in wanting to start it. You might feel alone for a little bit, but it doesn't have to be forever. You can definitely make a change in the community that you're at.
You can contact me on the ACD, the Atheist Community at Discord, and I do have a little bit of experience starting nonprofits, so I'd be more than happy to share my experience.
There you go. So there's some options out there.
Be surprised when I do. Thank you very much, both of you gentlemen, for taking my call.
Of course, Karlyn.
Look, thank you. Just don't ever call me a gentleman again.
Karlyn, thank you so much for calling in. And like, I felt that same sense. I really did feel that same sense. And when I first met up with a group in my area, it was a SSA group, a Secular Student Alliance group. And those group of people, they helped me get through some really rough times where I didn't know where to go. And luckily they were folks that were around my age, so I could relate, to my life experiences a bit more. And that was really helpful. And for anybody that doesn't feel like they have a community out there, I'm so sorry that you don't, because it's something that I think most people need. I like, that was one of the benefits of church. That's what kept me in for so long, is that I knew people who believed the same thing I did. And I didn't know people who didn't. And if I did, that probably would have got me out a lot faster. So there's just a lot of work to do as far as building those communities for people. So keep building, folks. Keep doing it. We're getting there. There's more and more people coming and watching shows like this one every day. Honestly,
it's worth doing the work.
Yeah, it really is. And it's scary being the first one. So good luck, Karlyn. Good luck to you, and good luck to anybody who's trying to start communities or look for community in their areas. But folks, we are about to run out of time here for tonight's program. I want to give a special thanks first off to Kelley for being on the show tonight. Thanks, Kelley, for hopping on.
Thank you for having me. This was totally enjoyable. Like I said, this was my dream come true. I had such a great time here tonight. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so glad you got to be on. Do we have a Yeah, we do. We have a promo image for you. So where can people find you at, Kelley?
You can find me on the Atheist Community at Discord, where I host Meet the Cast and Crew every Tuesday. My website is kellyskaleidoscope.com. I've been trying to get a channel going on YouTube under my name, Kelley Laughlin. I'm really bad at production. If anybody out there wants to give me some tips, I'd be more than happy to accept them. But mostly you can just get a hold of me right now on the Discord, the ACD. So
cool. Thanks for plugging that. And as always, folks, this is Truth Wanted. This show happens live every week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. So if you're listening to a recording of this, you should definitely check out the live show if you can. But you can find this show in a couple places: YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. So I appreciate a like or a positive review on there. It helps make this show more known to other people. So thank you, everybody that does that. and subscribes to the channel. So there's a couple different ways you can support this show. One of them, again, as I mentioned earlier, is the Patreon. Patreon.com/truthwanted is the place to do it. You might get a shout out that week if you donate. And I want to give a special thanks to everybody who donates on there as well. Another way to support the show is through YouTube memberships. You can click that little donate button there and on the side. Yep. And you can get little emoticons and stuff if you're watching this live. So thank you everybody that does that as well. And we also have merchandise. We got the store with all the merch in it, and it's pretty cool. We got hoodies. We got shirts. No Space Jam material because we are legally not allowed to do that. But maybe we can get a partnership in the future. I would like that. Maybe my face with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Michael Jordan on the shirt. That would be cool. Warner Brothers Entertainment, please contact me and we'll make that happen. This show is a product of the Atheist Experience Network. We got a bunch of other shows on this network, and one of them is Talk Heathen, which I will be hosting this Sunday. So if you like my face, you can watch it again this Sunday on Talk Heathen. So check that out, and all the other great, wonderful programs that the Atheist Community of Austin helps produce. And you can also check out the Facebook fan group where you can come talk to me and some other folks who post on there. It's pretty cool if you haven't checked it out already. And right after this, Kelley and I are going to be on the Discord, the Atheist Community of Austin fan Discord. So come click on the link to that and get ready. We're going to answer your questions after this show. Last but never, ever, ever least, I have to thank the wonderful, spectacular, amazing, fantastic crew that helps make this show happen every single week. Look at that crew.
What a great bunch of people.
What a great bunch of people. I agree. Thank you, all of you who make this show happen. You guys rock. The crew is the best. Anyway, Kelley, do you have any words of wisdom before we close out tonight's program?
Stay sane. Always question things before you just accept them. I want to tell everybody to go to Truth Wanted YouTube and hit the like button. And as my boss Stidix would always say, if you really don't like the show, hit the dislike button twice.
There you go. There you go. And don't buy amethysts for your migraines.
No, no. And obsidian is not going to help with your gout.
Yeah, that too. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Remember to always keep wanting the truth.
Bye-bye.